Najee Brown is the writer and director of Stokely and Martin, which is playing at the Multicultural Arts Center, where he is also the artistic director. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
And Darren Paul is an actor who plays Stokely Carmichael in this wonderful production. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
So, Najee, how did this come to be?
Okay, so I had left New York in 2019, and I actually started living in Elliott, Maine. And while I was there, I had just came off a show that I did in Scotland called Henry Box Brown. I directed it there. And I had absolutely no clue of what I was going to do in Maine. So it was right by Portsmouth, New Hampshire. So I ended up emailing all the theaters in town saying, hey, I'm here. And that landed me eventually working with the Seacoast Repertory Theater. And later, after the murder of George Floyd, they asked me to lead the Soul series, I named it, which was a series dedicated to BIPOC plays. So we were like, what are we going to do to open the season? And I already had a play called Nevaeh's Brother, which was a one-act. And I had, because of everything that was happening with the Black Lives Matter protests, I was one of the people who organized one of the largest rallies in New Hampshire at the time. I was very much meditating on the words of Stokely Carmichael. He's always been a part of my learning, and every time something like that happens, I go back to his words and his speeches. And I was listening to it, and I happened to put on the documentary King in the Wilderness, and I heard a man by the name of Cleveland Sellers say that King invited him, Stokely, and Willie Ricks to speak about Black Power. And I was like, whoa, that would be a very interesting play, because I know Dr. King did not like the term Black Power, and I know Stokely Carmichael, and Snick coined that term. And I was like, whoa, how do I get access to this conversation? How do I write this play? And when I told the theater company, they were like, yeah, we would love for you to write that play. And we'll put it before Nevaeh's Brother. So that was the first thing that we opened up the Soul series with in January of 2021. Mm-hmm. And that's how the play came about. I actually interviewed Willie Ricks over the course of 3 conversations to really figure out how this conversation was had and what was said in that room. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Bringing that history to life. And so, Darren, what attracted you to want to play the role of Stokely Carmichael?
Honestly, I had done a project with Najee in the past, and reached out to me and was talking about the show, and knowing that Stokely Carmichael is one of those names that you hear, but not heavily, shown in the public, like Huey P. Newton and
That's very true.
And Fred Hampton and all that in terms of Black Panther Party. And so I was really just intrigued with the fact of being a part of the conversation with MLK. And yeah, as an actor, you just want to tell a story, and you want to tell things that relay truth. And so I was like, man, this seems like a good piece to be a part of.
And not only is Stokely Carmichael underrepresented when we talk about Black Panther history, I think juxtaposing him with Dr. King is a really interesting choice, because so often it's Malcolm versus Martin, right? So why did you want to put this specific civil rights figure against the one that is so ever present in our minds?
Because it really happened. And I, from my research, you can tell that there was a mentor-mentee relationship between Dr. King and Stokely Carmichael. They did marches together because, they kicked John Lewis out, and Stokely became the head of SNCC. And SNCC always did the groundwork in the fights before the SCLC came, and a lot of the credit was, given to Dr. King. But that relationship between a young man in his early 20s and an older man, pushing 40, is so important to see, because you're seeing an older man mentor these young men, and also you're seeing them school him on the way that the world is, because this is not 1955. This is 1967. So this is Dr. King in color, right? This is not Dr. King black and white photos. This is an older Dr. King who is we're closer to the 70s, and this is around the time of Aretha Franklin. This is a completely different feeling, and he is out of touch. At this time, his approval rating was really low, and he was one of the most hated men in America. And Stokely Carmichael, they had a different mission. They had a different vision. And even the speech that he gave, I Have a Dream, he around this time says that dream has now become a living nightmare. So it's like, this is so important to put these two men together, because they actually had a relationship together, even though they disagreed. And that is important to see in today's world. Two people who don't agree on everything still working together. And you can hear the compassion that Stokely had when he gave his speech when Dr. King died. Like, that's somebody that really meant something to him.
And Darren, what material did you draw on to fully embody Stokely Carmichael?
Yeah, that's a great question. So Stokely Carmichael later in his life became, Kwame Ture. And so looking at that and trying to kind of not disassociate myself, but look at that earlier time, not at the Black Panther Party, like see like what built and how did this grow. And so I utilized a lot of his interviews that they had like between 1965, 1967, as well as debates that he had, because I think you see a lot of a person's character inside of when they're arguing or trying to get their point across with someone else. So especially when it's something they're passionate about. So using that, I even found an interview that he interviewed his mother. And so just seeing the sentiment, seeing the sentimental side of him, and seeing how he was a great orator, great with his words. And so just being able to invoke that same amount of passion as well as clarity.
And Najee, you had played Martin when this play first hit the stage.
Yes. Yeah.
Why not play him this time?
Because I wasn't directing it then.
Okay.
It was directed by someone named Sandy Clark. It was COVID. So even finding a cast in New Hampshire, Maine, for Black people.
Listen, I was about to say,
during COVID.
even two characters sometimes is too many to cast.
So, but I originally wrote it for my friends. I had 3 friends in New York, and I wanted them to come. I thought it was a good play for us to work on together, and it didn't work out because of COVID. I did play Martin, but I feel like I carried it to a certain place. And when I saw the young man, Stetson, that's playing, I was like, wow, this is a perfect Martin. Just the way his delivery, the way he holds his body when he's playing the character, is just so beautiful. And I'm just so excited. And for me, it's always interesting directing a piece of mine, because I consider myself a older playwright in a way, where I started the writing first, but directing is still something that I'm like learning my flow in, and I'm like taking that 5-year break and revisiting the text. It almost feels like I didn't write it, and that right there is just incredible, because like I'm like looking at it with new eyes. And there's a lot of rewrites in this one.
I was going to ask what some of those changes are.
So since I wrote Stokely and Martin, it was shown in colleges, and a professor mailed me Coretta Scott King's autobiography, which led to me writing a piece called Hear Her Sing for Freedom, which is a one-woman show on Coretta Scott King. And it shows her journey as a freedom fighter through music, because she went to the New England Conservatory. That's where she met Dr. King. And she would do these things called the Freedom Concerts. And the Freedom Concerts is how a lot of times they raise money for the movement. So she did those, and the play is that. But through my research, I realized how much she was against the Vietnam War, and that she spoke out way before Dr. King did. And I was like, man, I really need to add scenes where she is stressing the fact that he needs to speak out. And I'm so glad I added those scenes, because those scenes are the most grounded parts of the play. Everything's so intellectual, but those scenes are so grounded and poetic and beautiful, because you really get to see Martin at home. and you get to see him in his. You agree, right?
Yeah.
You get to see him in his safe place, and I don't think we get to see Martin and Coretta enough like this in media. That how he leaned on this black woman for groundedness, for peace, for love.
And that's so resonant here in Boston because of
Yeah,
The embrace.
Embrace
And
and
yes,
their love
exactly.
story,
And
yes.
the fact that Martin was here and
Yes.
did some schooling here. Yeah.
Yes. And I'm glad you mentioned her pushing him to be vocal about opposing the Vietnam War, because Stokely was vocal about this.
Very vocal.
And talked about, not only the apparent nonsense behind
Yes.
the war, but the fact that black soldiers are going over there to fight for a war where they weren't getting their own rights.
And they were being put in the front lines.
Right.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. The way that he would express it. And he also, he chimes in, talks about how Ali was, talking about the same thing, and the reason why they stripped him of his belt to begin with, the reason why he ended up being penalized for feeling a specific way. And I think that he was stressing the fact that how is it that we can feel so, I guess, how can we feel like this country deserves our service, right? If they can't even treat us like actual human beings where we are.
How does that help you process your existence as Black people in America today with everything that's going on? Because so often theater, obviously, for the people writing it and doing it and consuming it, it's an outlet. But when you're embodying someone who had such fervor about the fight for civil rights in America, is that a way for you to sort of process your own feelings?
Yes, I think because history, right? I'm originally from Dallas, Texas. I was born in America, and being a Black American really is a very specific space. Yeah. And so understanding the history, the way I always kind of look at it, or how I've said it, is America kind of defined the relationship of how they were treating Black people. The first impression of how we come in is like, so now it's just playing catch up, right? And it's not so much me trying to look back at slavery and thinking about being whipped or anything like that, but there is a history, and there's a history that gets pushed to the side. There's history that doesn't get expressed, and still kind of walk in it, And so I don't think I don't have to look too far to feel that, because it is still evident, which is sad, but it is. Like, this show is relevant.
Yeah.
Yeah, Najee, one of the themes in the play is the costs of speaking out, right? And all of I think one can imagine that, well, we all know that Dr. King is sanitized, right?
Yeah, no. You telling me.
Sanitized to the nth degree. And he existed at a time, right, where respectability politics were at play. That was part of the tension between
that's the
him
line
and
in
some
the play
of his
too.
contemporaries.
Yeah.
And between not only his contemporaries, but younger peers of the movement. And so how do you process that part of this? Like, how is that coming out? And essentially, is there any fear on your end of what you're putting in this, how it may come off to certain people? Or
honestly, I think we need to recognize that this was a man and this was a human first. And that because he was human, what he did was extraordinary. And I think sometimes we put him on this pedestal of, as almost as if he's not human, as almost as if he was like Christ, right? And because of that, we don't see many people trying to do what he did because they feel like it's impossible. And I think if we look at the man, if we look at his fears, if we look at his worries, if we look and say, wow, he sat in the very same spot that I can sit into, then we can go out there and make those changes. And I think that sanitizing stops us from going out there and doing it. It just seems like he's just like, and then we look for the flaws. This is not a play about his flaws. This is a play about his sacrifice, and you cannot show his sacrifice without showing his humanity, without showing that his phone rang every day with threats on the other line, that he had a wife and that he had a family and he had children that he was worried about. That if he spoke out against the war, it would be better for the world, but what about the safety of his kids? We remove that. We remove the fact that he was a pastor. We remove the fact that he was a spiritual leader for people. We remove the fact that he was a husband and a father. And once you put those things back into play, it's like, man, right now, if somebody's I have a puppy. If someone's threatening my puppy, I'm like, oh, like I'm gonna go crazy, But just imagine that on a different level. Dr. King is extraordinary. And no, I'm not worried, because we need to see his humanity. We need to recognize how great he was and where he was at that time of his life, and how powerful that was for him to go out there and speak out against the war. How powerful Mrs. King was for maintaining and building the King Center and going out there and advocating so that we can have a King holiday. These people were extraordinary humans, but in them lies the ability for us to be extraordinary humans too.
Mm-hmm. And then recognizing his flaws, also recognizing that even with this sanitized image, right, he was still assassinated.
Yes.
So because
he was radical.
Exactly.
Love is radical. If you look at American history, what they try to keep away from us more and more is those messages of people coming together, whether black and white, whether black people from two sides. It's always about the division, right? They won't tell you about during the Reformation, poor blacks and poor whites coming together, so they got scared and they created Jim Crow laws. They won't tell you about the White Panthers, which was an organization that was created after the Black Panthers to work with the Black Panthers to help create change in their communities. Why are we not learning about this? Because there's power. Love is revolutionary, and it's power in love. There's more power in love than there is in hate. Mm-hmm. There is.
Mm-hmm. How have you two developed a sort of theatrical love between being the writer and director and being the actor in your work together on this?
I love this cast. I really do. I'm looking forward to rehearsal tonight. It's been hard to find a theater community here in Boston. I was just saying that in the dressing room. And I haven't written anything in like maybe 2 years, which since I started writing, I've wrote a play a year. And this makes me want to write so much more because of the people that I'm writing and creating with. Like, this is amazing. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And he's watching him every rehearsal. I can't wait for you guys to see it. It's just he's giving me that passion, and the way he looks at I'm like, oh, you're doing amazing. You're doing amazing.
I appreciate the fact that Najee allows space to operate, right? Even though he did write it and now directing it, he still looks at these words and he's okay if you're like, oh, I looked at it kind of, in this way. And he's like, oh, I can see that making sense, and let's work with that. Let's see how that goes. Like, he gives us the opportunity to allow this story to be our own, even though like he's penned it, and I do my darndest to maintain the pen. Trust, I that's something I really do care about, just as an actor. If someone wrote those words, they wrote them with intention. But also having the ability to take those words and to make them fit make them fit this time and all of that. So I do appreciate his directing style, even though he said he's kind of wading in the waters of it, but he's done a remarkable job, and he has a patience that doesn't always occur in this space, but yeah, it's been a joy to work with him.
Yeah.
Excellent. Well, I'm sure it will be a joy to watch this production. Darren and Najee, thank you both so much.
Thank you. It's been wonderful.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe below and click the playlist button for more Rooted videos. And a big thank you to our sponsor, Brightbound, for supporting this conversation. Brightbound is reimagining career readiness, helping middle and high school students explore their passions, try out career paths, and make confident decisions about their future.